When we were kids watching the regular show, Benson was annoying. The angry gumball machine who yelled at Mordecai and Rigby for slacking off. He was the killjoy, the buzzkill, the guy who ruined the fun and always threatened to fire everyone. But here's the wild thing. The older you get, the more you realize Benson wasn't the villain. He was the only one holding it all together. And somewhere between turning 18 and paying your first round of rent, it hits you. Benson was never the bad guy. Benson was us, before we even knew we'd become him. Let's unpack that. When you're 10 years old, regular show is hilarious because of the chaos. Mordecai and Rigby are relatable, they hate work, they mess around, and they get into absurd adventures by just avoiding responsibility. It's wish fulfillment. No job, no consequences, just good vibes. But then when you're 25 and your job depends on clients not emailing you at 6 p.m. with just one more quick revision, and you start to see things differently. Benson's yelling, it starts to sound a lot like you're in a monologue after a long day of emails, unpaid overtime, and group projects where you're the only one pulling weight. Because here's the truth. Benson wasn't angry because he hated fun. He was angry because he cared, and no one else did. At the heart of Benson's stress is what I call the responsibility gap. He's the park manager, so he's not just responsible for getting the work done, he's responsible for cleaning up everyone else's messes, literal messes, cosmic messes, multi-universe threatening messes. Every time Mordecai and Rigby slack off, it's Benson who's left dealing with angry clients, blown up park equipment, or some monster from another dimension. Every time, Benson's the one covering for it. Imagine trying to run a workplace where two of your employees are too lazy to do the bare minimum, your upper management is a man-child with a Victorian accent, and your HR department is Mossman. That's Benson's daily life. We see him scream, sure, but we rarely see him snap. He always pulls it together and gets back to work. That's not villain behavior. That's someone who's trying to hold the chaos together with duct tape and caffeine. His anger does not equal villainy. Benson gets framed as the antagonist because he yells. But let's talk about that for a second, because in real life, anger is often a mask for burnout. Benson is angry because he's overwhelmed. He's constantly managing disasters, deadlines, and people who don't take him seriously. And let's be real, who hasn't felt that way by the mid-20s? He's not lashing out randomly. He's reacting to a system that doesn't support him. He's a middle manager with no backup. He's underpaid, overstressed, and constantly expected to fix problems that aren't his fault. And yet, he stays. That's the real kicker. He doesn't quit. He doesn't abandon the park. He doesn't go on a revenge rampage and fire everyone. He cares too much to walk away, even when the job and the people in it keep hurting him. Let's talk about Benson's loneliness. Behind the yelling, behind the clipboard and the to-do list is just a guy who wants someone to understand. His job isolates him. He's not one of the guys, and he knows it. There's always a gap between him and the rest of the crew. A gap he didn't create, but one he can't seem to bridge either. Think in the episode Think Positive, Benson tries to stop yelling because Pop says it makes people feel bad. Benson internalizes that, like a lot of us do, so he bottles up everything, tries to smile through it, tries to be the cool boss. And what happens? The park descends into chaos. By the end of the episode, it's clear. Benson's anger, while not ideal, was necessary. He doesn't yell because he enjoys it. He yells because it's the only way people listen. But here's really the sad part. When he does try to be vulnerable or express himself, it usually backfires. Whether it is awkward attempts to date or trying to bond with his coworkers, Benson constantly gets shut down. Even when he lets his guard down, people don't see the effort. They just see the angry boss again. One of regular show's most genius tricks is putting realistic emotional dynamics in a completely ridiculous setting. There are giant ducks, haunted VHS tapes, and death condo masters. But at the emotional core, that's real. Benson is a classic overworked millennial in a cartoon world. He's the person who stayed late to finish a report while everyone else went to happy hour. He's the one getting blamed for things that aren't his fault because he's the only one who knows what's going on. He's also the guy who, deep down, just wants to be seen. Not as a boss, not as the yeller, but as a person trying his best. And honestly, that hits different when you've worked a retail job, He had a toxic group project in college or tried managing people who only half listen. We are living in the era of burnout. Hustle culture is fading, but the damage is done. Most people in their 20s and 30s are juggling rent, bills, side gigs, and the occasional existential crisis. And guess what? Benson was doing all that in metaphorical form before it was cool. He didn't have a good work life balance, he had no HR support, he couldn't afford to take a week off to find himself, and yet he kept going. Not because he loved being angry, but because somewhere under that stress and sarcasm, Benson believed in his job. He believed in the people around him even when they let him down. That's what makes him a complex character. That's what makes him real. He's not the comic relief, not the villain, he's the emotional backbone of the show, and we didn't even realize it as kids. So let's flip the script. Maybe Benson wasn't mean. Maybe he was the only one willing to show up when everyone else coasted. Maybe yelling was his trauma response. Maybe his greatest flaw was that he kept believing things would get better. Maybe Benson was the most human character in a show full of talking birds and time-traveling karaoke machines. And maybe that's why we get emotional when we rewatch regular show now. Because we're not Mordecai and Rigby anymore. We're Benson, or on our way to becoming him. And it's not all bad. Because if Benson taught us anything, is that you can be exhausted, frustrated, underappreciated, and still care. Still show up. Still fight for the people around you even when they don't get it. And that's not failure. That's resilience. If you made it to the end of this essay, thank you. And if you've ever felt like you're the only one holding it together while everyone else got to slack off, just know Benson sees you, and so do I. Let me know in the comments if you've got a new perspective on him, or if there's another cartoon villain you want me to revisit with grown-up eyes. Like, subscribe, and take care of yourself. Bye!
When are you two gonna learn that your actions have consequences? Consequences that affect other people!